through another full day of ETH Denver, and we are at our last panel. So I'm Karen Scarbrough, and this panel is on decentralized Web3 infrastructure. So I'm going to give the panelists an opportunity to introduce themselves and talk a bit about what of each of their individual projects are working on. So if you'd like to kick it off, Nick.
Sure. My name is Nick Fett. I'm the CTO of Tellor. Tellor is a decentralized oracle. We bring off-chain data and we put it on-chain. So if you need a price feed, you need information about another chain or any real-world data, we can put it on for you.
Hey, hello everyone. I'm Evgeny from Fluence. We call Fluence peer-to-peer application platform, but basically this is the off-chain compute layer that allows to create any kind of applications or off-chain protocols that complementary to on-chain and to other decentralized protocols like storage, identity, and things like that. Yep.
My name is David Vorik. I'm at Skynet. We're a decentralized file storage and web application hosting platform. So we focus on developers and we enable them to build applications like a decentralized Dropbox or a decentralized like Facebook or YouTube. And one of the big things that we've been doing recently is decentralized DeFi front ends. So users have control over the code that they're running, and they can downgrade, upgrade, use a fork. They don't have to use the dev team's front end.
Great. The whole week we've been talking about decentralization in the forms of DAOs and core blockchain applications. I want to hear a little bit about from each of you why decentralization is important in the infrastructure that surrounds that.
Sure, I can go first. So I think that decentralization is important because it is more powerful than centralization. When you think about, or when I think about the peak of the web, I think back to around 2010, which is when Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn had these like robust or just really rich APIs that exposed all of their data. And so entrepreneurs and developers could come in and make applications that had access to the full Facebook social graph and all the posts and all the groups. And so it was just really easy to innovate. If you had a crazy idea, you could have a new application running by the end of the day with 1 billion potential users and data from 1 billion users. And of course, this was perceived as a competitive threat. Facebook, et cetera, realized that these applications were actually outgrowing them and potentially in a position to, replace Facebook. And so these APIs got turned off. And so I think if we can go back to having these open APIs, we use decentralization to ensure that the APIs cannot be turned off. And so we can go back to 2011 and kind of lock that in and make it so that things remain open. And I think that's important because you just get more innovation, better user experience. You can't, user lock-in doesn't happen anymore. Users have the choice to switch away from an abusive platform that is, say, pushing really vile privacy policy updates.
Yeah, I agree with this point. This is a great point about composability and APIs cutting access from whoever built on top of APIs. That's the biggest, one of the biggest issues of Web 2. And this is what Web3 kind of tries to solve. In general, decentralization is great, for privacy, censorship resistance, user control data. But actually, when you think of where the real value for developers, where the real value is actual composability, actual being safe when you build on top of something that other people created, and you're sure that this service or data will be there tomorrow, so you will not lose the access, you will not lose your product and your users because you're investing your time and money and resources into building new stuff. So you want to be sure that the infrastructure, the foundation that you chose for your application will still be there tomorrow, and decentralization allows you to achieve that.
Yeah, just kind of, those are both good answers. I think decentralization is sort of kind of the whole point of it all. That's why we're all here. If you look at just why didn't you build this in a Web 2 manner, it's because, well, you wanted some sort of censorship resistant piece. It's obviously most of the time whenever you move towards the Web 3 version, you have to use a blockchain, you have to pay gas, things get expensive. It's probably less efficient, might be slower than just using a single database. So you have to think about like, okay, well, why do we want to do that? And then if you have a centralized infrastructure piece, or you have admin keys running any sort of piece of your APIs or your oracles or something like that, it shows that the whole thing probably didn't need to happen.
Right, and on that, like you mentioned, people already using elements of centralization outside to make the experience maybe easier to build or faster or whatnot. What is your biggest challenges that you see in keeping Web3 infrastructure decentralized?
Yeah, I think it's just harder. Usually people will say like, oh, I want to build this, whether it's a decentralized Facebook or they want to build this DeFi protocol, and they're like, oh, well, for us, it's an oracle, so I need off-chain data. Well, it's super easy if you just do it yourself and are centralized. You can get it up and running tomorrow, but then if you want to use a decentralized oracle, you want to have some sort of way to vote on it, some sort of fallback mechanism. It adds a lot of complexity. It makes it slower, maybe not quite as easy to use, and those are still some of the challenges that we're doing, and just making sure that we educate people on, okay, this is why it's important, this is why we need to do it, and try not to take shortcuts.
Well, I guess the biggest challenge is, most of technologies we work with are not mature enough, so nothing works really. And obviously there are some pieces of infrastructure already built, like we have pretty solid storage foundations, like from Skynet, or like what Protocol Labs is doing, or like Arweave. We have teams building oracles. We have some ceramic, which is like a great piece, also like a database part. But some pieces are just missing. Like, for example, what we see, like every DeFi or DAO project that have some on-chain code and want to create the front end that would have like a proper, user experience with, when you can click the button and immediately see the response, or like you can understand what is happening there, or you want to see some aggregated numbers coming from blockchain. This forces teams to use centralized pieces of the solution. So they basically, besides smart contract and the front end, people doing the centralized backends sitting in the Amazon. So in general, their application depends on this central piece, and this kind of and there is no way to do it better because there is no good solution. Like we're kind of working on the solution right now at Fluence, but I would say, like, from the challenger's perspective, I see this is the biggest, one of the biggest challenges in the industry, how we transition from totally centralized to totally decentralized solutions.
Yeah, I think I would go in kind of the same vein. At maturity, I think Web3 is actually easier than Web2. Like, for example, if you want to deploy a website, you don't need a server. Like, you don't need to make an account on AWS. You don't have to pay anyone. And so, like, development is faster, deploying is faster, growing users. I think if we get the equation right, you don't need to pay the infrastructure bills. I think Web3 kind of perpetuates itself and takes care of the funding itself. And so you don't have to fear as a developer, like, getting to 10 million users tomorrow watching a video, because that's not going to cost you any money. Whereas if you're using AWS, that could be a $10,000 bill that shows up if you end up being too successful too fast. But the challenge is that Web 2, we've been building libraries, we've been building infrastructure, we've been building all the tooling around it. When you think about AWS in 2010, it was like really crappy and difficult. There's been 10 years of polish and like billions of dollars of engineering going into making the UX better, making the tooling stronger, solving every conceivable problem. In Web3, we just don't have that maturity yet. And so things are more difficult, not because Web3 is worse, but because it's different, and all of the solutions that we made for Web 2 don't apply, and so we have to rebuild the solutions and resolve all the same problems. But when we get to the end, the result will be fundamentally more powerful.
Right. Good points. So, David, you mentioned something along the lines of getting the equation right. And I think with the recent events in DeFi, we can see that some of those applications did get some very important equations, quote unquote, right, or at least scaling and very notable. So, in the decentralized infrastructure here, what kind of incentivization schemes or mechanisms are you working on to promote that same kind of growth?
Yeah, so we have been focusing more on like social media, and so I like to use the example of Reddit because it's this like crazy parasite organization where all of the value from Reddit comes from users writing interesting comments, making interesting memes, like finding interesting links and posting them. Everything that Reddit does is users, and then users get rewarded in like this worthless karma. And Reddit takes all the ad revenue and all the value generation and they sort of, or value capture, and all of that goes to Reddit. And so we're working on a tokenization framework where you can attach a token to everything, every post, every comment, even like every upvote could have a token attached to it. And then you can make social media that is rewarding the value creators rather than being fundamentally parasitic. And Reddit's my favorite example because they literally pay nobody anything. But I think all the social media giants are heavily parasitic, and that the power dynamic and that the revenue dynamic is way unfairly in favor of, say, like the Facebook or the YouTube, or like Spotify is another one where it's like the artists just don't get what they deserve. And so we hope that a token framework can address this and have the money flow outward instead of upward.
Actually, we are doing something similar focused on the code and on the developers. So the idea is, like, if you have the decentralized network running in a code, like a decentralized analogy to the cloud, it's actually pretty transparent which applications consist of which modules or like components. And it's also transparent who is the author of the components. And if you have the revenue flow coming for hosting of this application and components, then it's actually pretty easy to see like which component was popular, which component was used across many applications. And it's really easy to drive the part of revenue of this decentralized cloud to author of the component. So the idea is we are sort of can tokenize the code and we can drive the revenue for open source creators, which is not possible in the traditional cloud. Like in Amazon, they earn billions of dollars on these popular database instances like MySQL or like MariaDB, things like that, and they share nothing with the authors, like really nothing. And there are some established open source models already, but if you're the open source developer in a Web2 space and Amazon starts providing your software as a service at their platform, you can compete by creating your own cloud, but it's really hard. Like you have no chances. Their ecosystem is so higher, and like if developers go there, they see like they have the whole set of services. They can use your service together with others. It's like easily composable versus using like very separate cloud that yours is an open source developer running. So it really creates hurdles in terms of earning money as an open source developer. And we just see that with this code tokenization, we can really enable and drive the new revenue model for open source and like really accelerate the software innovation, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I just wanted to add on that real fast. When you look at the biggest companies in Web 2 and just like in general, none of them are open source. The models that have been super successful in the Web 2 world have all been centralized, closed source, company control. But when you switch over to the token world, it's the exact opposite. Companies that keep their source closed tend to struggle. And in the tokenized world, the most successful companies are the ones that are the most open and like user defending. And so that's something that's really exciting to me because I think cryptocurrency has the potential to completely shift the dynamic there and make it so that doing the most beneficial thing for humanity also gives you the most upside as a founder.
What about Coinbase?
So it's a step by step.
Yeah, I mean, to quickly kind of answer the incentives question, I think we just do kind of what every crypto company does, and we print money. It's sort of like the big revolution in crypto is that we all realized that we could mint our own token and use inflationary rewards to make people do things. Bitcoin started with incentivizing security, and now you're seeing people just really experiment with, okay, well, we can put these token rewards towards security or towards paying developers or towards getting people to actually use the thing with yield farming. So yeah, I think just different models around that, and it's definitely not perfect quite yet, but we're moving there.
And as all of this develops, there's a lot of further decentralization or fractionalization in what's happening for developers just building decentralized applications now. You've got different L2s, competing layer ones, tons of different ways developers are approaching this space now. So probably looks a little bit different for each of your solutions, but how are you thinking about providing decentralized infrastructure around all these new different ways developers can build?
Yeah, I mean, I think David and both these guys were talking about just kind of composability, just the ability, now you're really stuck, like in 2 years ago, like everyone was designing their applications where you would only be on Ethereum, for instance, but now everyone knows like you have to build it so you can go on every different chain out there or different rollups just because users are on more chains now. So we're just trying to build it so you can sort of in a modular fashion go over there and it doesn't break any of your governance, doesn't break the inflationary aspects that you need. So it's definitely tougher, but yeah, I would say just making it easier to plug and play.
Related to L2s and like many chains, I think I expect the most innovation to happen actually on the wallet side. Because like wallets should abstract out all of this complexity from users. Users should not know which chain they're using, or like when they should just click a button, create this debt position, or like take a credit, or like take a loan, or like something like that. And under the hood, it should be like moving tokens between chain, between different L2s, from EVM to other virtual machine. Users shouldn't care really about that. And from our perspective, our network is like off-chain network. But we're gonna have the on-chain economics layer, like with all the payments and transactions. We're probably gonna go with EVM and layer 2. But we will see how it goes. Like we will see where the market goes. Like currently, it seems like EVM gonna be winner for a big period of time. So everyone will support it, and it sort of will be the universal virtual machine for every chain with different security models. But who knows?
Yeah, I think for Skynet we've been working as hard as possible to make sure that Skynet can just slip into any stack. It's a data storage layer. It's like an application front end, and so we've been looking at ways to, and we're hopefully going to be releasing something soon that you could slip into any wallet. So you could make MetaMask a fully Skynet compatible wallet, and so anyone with MetaMask can now use the full Skynet ecosystem without needing another seed. The same applies to Tally and to the Cosmos wallet, and so we're trying to make it as easy as possible for developers who are in multiple ecosystems to just be able to plug Skynet in as a module of their application and not have to worry about compatibility as much. And then same thing as Evgeny was saying on the wallet side. I think really all of this complicated machinery of moving between chains and like bridging and et cetera, really, in the end state, users will never see any of that. Just like, when you log on to the internet, you don't realize that you're going from TCP to DNS to, and then you're wrapping it in encryption, and then you're routing through a BGP later, and like all this stuff is just happening. You're not doing any configuration, and I think crypto is kind of we're not to the point yet where it's just as easy as typing an address in, but we will get there, and I think crossing through the whole, crypto sphere will be very low friction once the wallets are more mature.
And on that topic of the developer experience, what are your projects doing to enable that specifically? Is it portability, language specific? What are your approaches to that?
Yeah, so we initially about 2 years ago, were very language agnostic. We tried to make our SDK available in every language. And then we found that there was really only one language that mattered, and that language was JavaScript, which is not my favorite language, yeah, but it is where all the traction was. And we realized that by piling all of our efforts into JavaScript, we could really see like the most returns. And so maybe in the future, when we have a lot more dev power, we can go back to supporting a bunch of languages. But I think for us, the strategy has been, finding the focal point where all of the energy and all the development is, and just really trying to make that experience as simple and slick as possible.
Yeah, developer experience is a huge pain actually, mainly because like we have the new language. Basically, we have the Aqua, which is like very new, unique programming language for creating peer-to-peer systems and protocols. And syntax is not hard, but understanding the concepts and writing the code, it's something very new to people. The new domain area. It's like when no one knew Solidity and everyone started first time got into Solidity, so it was hard. And for sure, we're trying to we also have like JavaScript SDKs for like complementary to Aqua. But this is, I think, the way we think of this is that if you as a developer understand the value of the technology that you are going to use, like if you're understanding that you want to create this new internet magic money, then you have enough motivation to learn Solidity. The same thing, if you understand why do we want to use Aqua, that you really want to create a decentralized backend, a decentralized API, like set up the off-chain protocol, you will learn it. Like you will overcome through this, complexities of learning new language. So, tooling, yes, we are working like constantly doing the new tooling that makes it easier. But like the biggest thing is you need to learn. Like you need to commit to learning the new stuff.
Yeah, I think there's a big thing with you. You want to make your documentation easy. You want to make everybody able to use your decentralized infrastructure. But to be honest, there's not like thousands and thousands of users who are clamoring at us to use our protocols. Like if you really want to, like people who reach out to me, like I'll like literally like make the pull request myself and like help you input your code. That's what we found. Like a lot of users like making sure that we like answer our Discord messages with them and just help them out. And it's still a super small space. It's not, people like being able to talk to you and input that way. So we're still kind of growing, but yeah.
Yeah, there is a lot of approachability in this ecosystem that I like. And so for our last question here, borrowing a question I saw at another panel that I liked, what's your biggest prediction for your category in the future for decentralized infrastructure? So what do you see happening in the coming years and going forward?
Kind of for my category, so I guess I'm like a little bit different than these two. I'm Oracle's. I guess my biggest prediction is I think we'll, fingers crossed, get away from a lot of these bridges that are really, really, really bad. Oracles are a big piece in making decentralized bridges, so I think that's going to be really a key piece in making a lot of this interoperability actually happen. So,
I guess on our side is we see a lot of complexity in building the new networks, the new unique systems, like the new Oracle with very specific economic design, or like the new bridge with very specific security model, or things even like off-chain multi-sig wallets, which have very specific way to create signatures or distribute the pieces of threshold signatures. So what I really want to do, what I see, is the easiness of the creation of such systems. So like I want to see like the design space where it's easy to experiment by deploying the new Oracle with the new algorithm, or like the new replication model for the data, or the new the new off-chain governance voting mechanism, and combine them together and play with them and iterate on them. So this is what we are trying to enable, basically. So I'm looking forward to seeing it, and this is what this is what would be super cool.
I think we're going to see the world hyper tokenize. I think every human being is going to have one or more, maybe several of their own tokens that they've kind of like launched and curated. Like all of your friends will have tokens, and like every restaurant will have tokens. And I think the future is billions of different tokens, and people will have portfolios of like tens of thousands of tokens each. It's going to like just replace the stock market. I think Web3 is going to deliver that.
It's a very bold prediction. I like it. So I saw the other panels do questions from the audience too. So I don't know if we have a minute for that, but so we have a minute. So if there's one question out